forest had always been the only place where 10-year-old Eli felt safe. The orphanage on the outskirts of Red Valley was more a prison than a home. Cold beds, colder food, and the coldest hearts watching over the children. Eli had learned early that if he wanted warmth, he would have to find it somewhere else. So as dawn cracked through the grey sky, he slipped through a loose board in the fence and darted into the woods, barefoot, hungry and searching for berries again. The morning mist hung thick among the tall pines, muffling sound and wrapping the world in a pale silence. Eli didn't mind. Silence was kinder than people. He walked deeper into the forest, humming softly, just to hear something that didn't hurt. But then something broke the quiet, a low groan, weak, strained, human. Eli froze. His heart hammered, and his breath came out in tiny puffs of white. Another groan echoed, closer this time, and his small legs carried him toward it before he even decided to move. Behind a fallen tree, half covered in pine needles, lay a man. Not just any man, a native warrior. His long hair was matted with sweat and dirt. His chest bore a bleeding wound. His breathing was shallow. Eli stared, trembling. He had heard stories about natives his whole life, stories full of fear, fire and warnings. But this man wasn't fearsome. He was dying. The warrior's eyelids fluttered, then lifted slightly. His gaze met Eli's, dark and sharp even through the haze of pain. For a moment neither moved. Then Eli's voice cracked out, barely a whisper. "Mister, you need help." The warrior exhaled raggedly. "Water." Eli looked around frantically. No canteen, no creek nearby. But he remembered something. The indent of a rock where rainwater always gathered. He sprinted to it, scooped what little water remained into his cupped hands, and rushed back. The warrior opened his mouth just enough for Eli to pour the water in, drop by drop. A shaky breath escaped him, almost a sigh. "Thank you." Eli swallowed hard. "I'll bring more. Don't die, okay? Don't." He raced back and forth until his hands blistered from scraping rocks, until the water tasted like dirt, until his arms shook with exhaustion. But he didn't stop. Something inside him refused to. When he returned the last time, he found the warrior drifting into unconsciousness. Eli knelt beside him, tears streaming silently. The man wasn't just a stranger. He was the first person Eli had ever saved, the first person who needed him. "I'll stay," he whispered. "I won't go." He sat beside the warrior until night fell. The forest grew dark, then darker still, but Eli didn't move. He pressed his small palms against the warrior's cold arm. "You're not alone tonight." By dawn, the warrior was still alive, barely. Eli knew he needed real help. He dragged himself up and staggered toward the edge of the forest, planning to steal bread from the tavern, maybe find a doctor who wouldn't hit him for asking questions. But as he neared a clearing, he froze. A sound, distant at first. Drums, hoofbeats, branches snapping beneath marching feet. Eli's skin prickled. Through the morning fog, the shapes appeared. First shadows, then silhouettes, then unmistakably real figures, dozens, then hundreds. Native warriors, all moving with purpose, faces painted, weapons ready. Eli stood as still as the roots beneath him. In the center of the formation rode a woman wearing a wolf pelt across her shoulders and a necklace of carved stones. She radiated authority with every breath she took. Her eyes locked onto Eli instantly. She raised her hand. The entire army stopped. The silence that followed was so complete, Eli could hear his own heartbeat. The woman dismounted slowly and walked toward him. Eli backed up, 1 step, 2 steps, until his heel hit a stump. He squeezed his eyes shut. "I didn't hurt him," he cried. "I tried to help him. I gave him water. I swear!" A soft breath of wind brushed his cheek. Eli opened his eyes. The woman was kneeling eye level with him. "Little one," she said, voice low and steady. "Where is he?" Eli hesitated, then pointed toward the woods with a shaking hand. The woman rose and gave a signal. Instantly, 20 warriors sprinted into the trees. Moments later, the sound of urgent voices echoed back through the forest. The woman exhaled, closing her eyes briefly in relief. "You saved Koda," she said. "He is one of our finest." Eli didn't know what to say. He didn't know what he was supposed to do, so he stood there, arms limp at his sides, shivering. The woman watched him for a long moment. Then her voice softened. "What is your name, child?" Eli, he whispered. "Eli," she repeated. "You did what even grown men fear to do. You tended to a warrior of the Red Hawk tribe without hesitation. You showed courage, honor." Eli's breath trembled. No one had ever used those words about him before. Then she said something he could never have expected. "As long as the Red Hawk tribe stands," she said, "you will never walk alone again." The forest rustled like it was listening. The warriors bowed their heads, and Eli, an orphan nobody wanted, felt something warm bloom inside him, something he had never dared to hope for: belonging. The next sunrise would change everything. The next sunrise would bring him home. Eli had never seen a sunrise so bright. He stood at the forest's edge, clutching his arms around himself as the first rays of gold spilled across Red Valley. The chill of morning seeped through his thin shirt, but inside a warmth spread he had never felt before. Hope. Real trembling hope. The tribal warriors had carried Khade away at dawn, moving with astonishing coordination and speed. Before disappearing into the trees, the woman, their leader, had turned back and spoken softly. "By sunrise, Eli, wait here. We will return for you." Eli didn't know what that meant. Why would hundreds of warriors return? Why would they want anything to do with an orphan boy no one else cared about? But something inside him, something small, fragile but persistent, believed her. For the first time in his life, someone had promised to come back for him. Hours passed slowly. The sky shifted from gold to blue, birds began to sing, and the frost melted from the grass. Eli waited. Every sound made him turn his head. Every crack of a twig made his heart jump. Then it happened. A deep rumble rolled through the forest. The ground trembled faintly beneath his bare feet. Eli's breath caught. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't wind. It was something else, something alive. The sound grew louder, stronger, like the earth itself was moving. Eli stepped back in fear as the first shadows appeared between the tree. Trunks, tall, broad, unmistakable, warriors, not 10, not 50, not 100, 200. They emerged like a river of silent strength, dressed in leather and feathers, carrying spears and bows, faces glinting with paint and determination. Eli's knees weakened. He had never seen so many people together, let alone marching straight toward him. At the front was the woman from before, riding a white-painted horse whose hooves barely made a sound. Her presence was commanding yet calm, like she carried the entire forest's spirit with her. When she reached the clearing, she raised her hand, and instantly the entire army stopped. The sudden silence pressed against Eli's ears. The woman dismounted and approached him slowly, her gaze steady, warm, unafraid. Eli took a shaky breath. Is Khade alive?" Her lips curved into a small smile. "Because of you, yes." He breathes. He fights to recover. Relief washed over Eli so powerfully his legs nearly gave out. The woman continued, "Eli, your act of kindness has traveled through our tribe like fire through dry grass. You crossed the boundary between our worlds with courage and innocence. You saved one of our own, not knowing who he was or what it might cost you." Eli looked down at his small, dirty hands. "I just didn't want him to die alone." The woman nodded slowly, deeply. "And that," she said, "is the heart of a warrior." The words stunned him. No one had ever spoken to him like that. Not gently, not respectfully, not proudly. She rested a hand on his shoulder. "We have come to give you a home, Eli." His breath hitched. A home?" His voice cracked, thin with disbelief. The woman gestured toward the massive formation of warriors. "Every warrior here stands today because your kindness touched us, because you gave water and hope to a dying man, because you saw not an enemy, but a human being." Eli's eyes blurred. He wiped them quickly, embarrassed to be crying in front of so many people. But the woman only smiled. "Among the Red Hawk people, kindness is not a small thing. It is the greatest bravery." She knelt in front of him so they were eye to eye. "Little one," she said softly, Would you allow us to be your family?" Eli couldn't breathe. For a moment, the world held still. He thought about the orphanage, the place that had never felt like anything but a burden tied to his ankle. He thought about the cold nights, the cruel voices, the loneliness that wrapped around him like chains. Then he looked at the warriors, at their strength, their unity, their silence that felt more comforting than any words he had ever been given. Slowly, tears rolling down his cheeks, Eli nodded. The woman exhaled with relief. "Then today," she said, rising to her full height, "you walk with us," she signaled, and two warriors stepped forward draped in a warm animal fur cloak. They wrapped it around Eli's shivering shoulders with a gentleness that surprised him. Another warrior brought a carved wooden staff, small and lightweight, just Eli's size. The woman placed it in his hands. "A symbol," she said, "of your place among us." Behind her, 200 warriors lifted their weapons toward the sky in one unified motion. The sound, raw, powerful, echoing through the forest, made Eli's heart thrum with awe. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel small. He felt seen, chosen, belonging. The woman touched his cheek gently. "From this moment forward," she said, "you are Eli of the Red Hawk tribe. You have family. You have a place. You have a future." Eli lifted his chin, the fear in his chest dissolving into something fierce and bright. "I'm ready," he whispered. "Take me home." The warriors parted, forming a path through the towering pines. Eli stepped forward, the fur cloak brushing against the ground, the wooden staff tapping softly with each step. 200 warriors closed ranks around him, strong, silent, protective. The boy who once walked alone now walked at the heart of a tribe. And as he disappeared into the forest with the warriors who claimed him, the world behind him faded. Every cold night, every lonely meal, every cruel word erased by the thunder of footsteps around him. Eli wasn't an orphan anymore. He was family.